Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. Well, to start off with, I just want to welcome over 1,000 new subscribers in the past week or so, and a big thanks to everyone that's been sharing this video around. We do believe that is the most important piece of content we have ever produced. For those of you that are new to the channel, I am waiting on a baby and he didn't come this week, but thanks to everyone that suggested a few names. For those of you that hang around to the end, I am going to tell a dad joke, and thanks to everyone that sent in their baby tips. Now, I am going to be taking some time off during this period with the newborn, and I will be making myself available to our premium members. If you're interested in joining over 1,100 people in our premium group, please head to nuggetsnews.com.au. Now, to start off with, it's been a bit of a red week. A lot of choppy action. I'm going to talk about when it's good to trade and not trade. Last week we were looking at a couple of short setups, particularly in EOS, and it's been down 15% this week. Litecoin was the other one that they were eyeing off as well. So let's get into the news as always. And I want to share this one about looking through history, which we'll get to in just a second. So this is something I found when I was going through my on this day in crypto history segment, and I posted this a few days before Bitcoin peaked in 2017. And if you've ever been gifted life-changing amounts of money by investing in crypto, only you can decide whether to take profits. And when everyone's greedy and bragging, that's often the best time of when to take some money off the table. And the idea is to always keep you guys one step ahead of what's happening. And I'm going to do a deep dive into where I think we are this week and what I think may be the bottom and how this is going to play out over the next few weeks and months, because I believe this is such an important time that can set you up to make life-changing amounts of money again, as we saw in 2017. On this day in crypto history, well, CoinDash got hacked and the hacker returned 17 million ETH last year. In 2017, Bitcoin surpassed the price of an ounce of gold for the first time. In 2016, 40 banks began testing Ethereum and Hyperledger. 2015, the Augur prediction market announced their project built on top of Ethereum. And in 2014, that bug was found that was to blame for the Mt. Gox hack, as well as 2013, Bitcoin reaching a new all-time high of $32. Into the Aussie housing market now, and housing credit growth is now officially the worst on record. Hopefully you guys have watched our presentation, but a lot of people were saying the auction results were a bit better this month. If you look into the data, they had a higher clearance rate, but a lot less volume of sales. So we're going to have Martin back on the channel. We'll be doing our regular monthly housing update soon as well. Over to Canada now. They've got a very similar resource-based economy to Australia, and the number of insolvencies is starting to soar, and this has put them into some negative GDP growth. And a lot of people saying, geez, is Canada the next big country to fall into recession? And I've said this before, one by one it's these little countries, fringe countries, and then we start to get some of these big household names that you just can't ignore that something is happening to the global economy. Now, the St. Louis Fed came out this week, James Bullard, and started talking about how effective money printing and QE is. And because it was done when interest rates were near zero, it's going to be a lot different for when they're unwinding their balance sheet and selling back those securities into market now that they've raised interest rates. So that's basically trying to say that they're going to have it both ways. It's going to help the market with easy money, but then it's not going to hinder the market when they try and sell them all back. And I certainly don't believe that that's the case. Now, even the Fed chairman Powell is a little bit freaked out by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's money printing scheme. So she's coming out now and saying that, hey, we can print so much money, we can give everyone free healthcare, free college, we're just going to print. And it's pretty scary that the Fed have created this narrative where people have become comfortable and think that they can do it. Everyone can do it. The more money, the better. Now, we look at some of these top tech stocks and some of the leaders, and Tesla has got a debt problem itself, and it's starting to have to pay its dues. All these big bonds that they've issued, all the people they owe money to, those creditors, are coming to get paid. And I think Tesla are going to have to, at some stage, raise more money. And as it says here in this article, they're addicted to debt, and there's some strong views either way on Tesla. That's this huge groundbreaking company that are going to be a big part of the future. And others saying that they're just simply spending too much money and they're never actually going to be profitable. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Now, this was an interesting story about Facebook moderators suffering from PTSD, and someone has to decide what is and isn't right for public consumption. And this is the problem we've spoken about before. The big companies, the YouTubes, the Facebooks, Twitters, are very much censoring what we can and cannot consume. But at the end of the day, someone's got to decide that. And this is an interesting story, saying that some of these people are suffering from having to deal with all that content. Now, I recommend you all follow Jesse Felder on Twitter. And one of the things he's saying here is share buybacks are done at the top of the market. And we've seen so much share buybacks over the past 12 or 18 months. But also, the number of CEO resignations often signals a top as well. So here we see in 2008, just before the GFC, the number of CEOs leaving their positions and getting out while the going's good, getting their bonuses. And we've now surpassed that level. So another sign that the smart money, the big end of town, are protecting their wealth. And a lot of economists are now pretty clearly stating that they believe the US is headed into recession, and some really smart people I've been watching now saying that the chances are 80%. So this isn't just a maybe tail risk. This is now the most likely path, and I think that's why we've seen the Fed do a complete 180. Now, their options are pretty limited. We know they've got those two levers, print money and lower interest rates. And China themselves, this is a bit of an older article, but this is showing the length that they're going to go to. $83 billion into the system in one day. So the Fed at one stage are doing, $40 billion a month, for example, of QE, quantitative easing, money printing to get money into the system, into their banks. China, $83 billion in one day. It really is crazy, the world that we now live in, what has become the new normal. And look, a few facts for you in China. I think it was something like 40 years ago, 90% of their population were living off less than $2 a day, and now we only have 1%. It really is crazy, that middle class, what they have done, what they've borrowed from the future, and now they're going to have to pay down that debt. And there's a saying that it takes 2 days to build a bridge in China, it takes 2 years in America, and it's those two powerhouses that we see the trade wars currently playing out. They are battling to be the number one economy, but China's just so big, I don't think that anyone will be able to challenge them for that number one spot in the coming years. Now, Norway's sovereign wealth fund bought $1 trillion of stocks, and this is another example we've seen in Sweden, Switzerland. The central banks are just printing money, and how is this fair? Wouldn't we love to have our own printing press and decide that just buying bonds to lower interest rates isn't enough? We want to buy some stocks. We want to buy some Apple shares, some Tesla. We want to buy properties. Think about all the mortgages that the US Federal Reserve have on their balance sheet after the GFC. So it's crazy times we're living, guys. Hopefully you're starting to get your head around all these different concepts. Now, despite the doom and gloom that this sort of picture paints, if they do end up printing ridiculous amounts of money, lowering interest rates again, government stimulus, there are still going to be investing opportunities and sectors that you can get exposure to. So this is what Mike and I spoke about, these future trends to invest in. Make sure you check out that video or podcast if you haven't already. And hopefully a few of you have seen this image about the great credit contraction, and we see all the derivatives that are built on top of these other assets, that are built on top of debt promises, that are built on top of money that's not backed by anything. Then we have our circulating currency that we see in front of us, but then under all that is actual real money and real assets and real world GDP, businesses and activity and so on. So it's funny how big this has got, which is actually built off so little. And that's why we see, just like a margin trade, that small movements in economies contracting or debt shrinking can cause these huge recessions because the system is all built on leverage. Now, this week I did an ultimate guide to gold and silver investing. It's something we get asked a lot about to protect your wealth as well. Well, whether you should invest in the gold miners, physical metals, ETFs, what's the best way to get exposure? So check that video out if you haven't already. Into the crypto news now. So Ledger came out and said that they have had a critical bug, and you are at danger if you've been spending Bitcoin on dodgy websites to buy things. Now, how a Bitcoin transaction works is it sends out the amount, but it also sends out a second transaction and then back to a new address. And that was the vulnerability that the hackers could send out that bigger, larger amount, anything that was still in your wallet at the time. So if you checked your ledger lately and it's safe, you're unlikely to be affected, guys, but make sure you have your latest version 1.55 up to date that does have that critical security fix installed. Now, Power Ledger met with the Western Australian Governor. It's great to see this support for our local projects. Last week, we had Horizon State being used by the South Australian Government. We know Blockgrain or AgriChain have been supported by the Queensland Government. So we're speaking with Treasury. We're trying to get blockchain to be adopted and have friendly regulation in Australia for crypto startups. And I'm really hopeful that we can get this right. This is an article about a new type of ATM using biometric blockchain scanning your face to fight crime and, identity theft and so on with facial recognition in this case. But this is the next wave of innovation and security that I see. Having your hardware wallet so it'll only work with a retina scan, your fingerprint scan, when you're in a certain geolocation, all those sort of things. So we just have additional layers of security, not only for your cryptocurrency, but for your personal data that you can protect with those biometrics. Now, this week saw a lot of money raised for these equity loan real estate type projects. And we know that's one of the first assets that's been targeted to join the digital revolution. So Morgan Creek joined $65 million Series B. We also saw a $260 million real estate deal to be tokenized by US capital markets firm. On nuggetsnews.com.au, we do try and bring you all the best articles that you may have missed as well. So this week we did see HTC partner up with Decentraland after we saw Samsung and Engine partner up. So it really is this race for the big boys and the little projects to say, hey, come and look at our product. We're doing a great job. Use our technology, and it's fantastic to see. So time to explore crypto, says pensioned consultant advising $400 billion. And if you've been following these news reports every week, it seems like I'm talking about the hundreds of millions of dollars that firms are raising or investing and so on. And it's these big boys, the smart money, that are clearly starting to say that, look, whether they recommend 1%, 5%, 0.5%, the big money is starting to seriously consider and look at crypto exposure. So even though prices are low, there's definitely money coming into this space. Indian government confirms crypto regulations in its final stages. So these are the countries that have kind of put the brakes on and are saying, look, let's get regulation right, and then we'll have a bit more of an open stance towards blockchain technology. Russia has ordered the same thing. Putin by July this year. We've seen the IMF come out and recommend action, and Malta is certainly one who put their hand up and wanted everyone to come to Malta, and now they're sort of saying, geez, we need to get this right if we're going to give out all these licenses and have this as the securities capital of the world. So good things are going to come, but all these countries are rushing to get these frameworks in place, and I think that's where you're going to see China and South Korea really step it up, India coming back into the ring. Here, another 35 countries urged to regulate crypto exchanges like banks. And it's those on-ramp, off-ramps that they can only really regulate. Once you're in the crypto ecosystem, you can trade with each other. And we know that with DEXs. Now that leads us to this next story about Polymath saying that security tokens can be compliant in a DEX fashion, so peer-to-peer trading of securities. And one of the things that they have built in with their security token standard and the more generalized ERC 1400 is the ability to restrict transfers of tokens. So if I own a security and you are also a security token investor and trader and you've done the right KYC, I can still sell it to you through a DEX. But if I try to send it to some random, or a random person tries to buy it off me and just send it to their Ledger wallet, the transaction actually won't go through because of the way that we have programmed that token. And that's really exciting, something I'll continue to talk about for you guys on the channel. Now, Binance have been rubbing a lot of people up the wrong way lately, and this comment here that JP Morgan is a stepping stone to mass adoption, you guys know my feelings towards this. I don't think JP Morgan coin is any step towards mass adoption whatsoever. I believe it's nonsense. Binance Launchpad selling out in seconds. It really feels like they're going in a different direction to what a lot of people were hoping, and I haven't been very impressed with their decks lately. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Am I being a little bit too sensitive, or is Binance starting to take a step in the wrong direction with everything that they're doing, along with Coinbase? Now, this is a tweet from 4 years ago. Brian Armstrong said, Ripple, Stellar, and all altcoins are just a distraction, and Bitcoin is way too far ahead. It's the king, and so on. And here he is a few years later. I'm not sure whether it's because times are tough and they're not making enough money, but well done to the Ripple supporters who have been hoping to get Ripple launched, and it is now on Coinbase. But just be aware that this was Brian Armstrong's stance not that long ago, and I was always of the assumption that they wouldn't list Ripple until they were certain it wasn't a security. And here we see that this case is going to stay in federal law, whether or not Ripple is a security. So I'm not sure why Coinbase would open themselves up to possible litigation, but Ripple holders, this is what you've been waiting for, so congratulations. Now, speaking of JP Morgan, Facebook coin coming out, there's all these rumors about other centrally issued coins, and I think every big corporation is going to put out their own coin, and it really is just junk, guys. It is only strengthening that argument for Bitcoin, for true decentralization and censorship resistance. Maybe it leads people down the rabbit hole and they see the light, but let me know what you guys think. I think we're going to see all these big corporations, who need central banks? They're going to print their own money and launch their own coin. In terms of those USD stablecoins, I think the strong case for Synthetics and Maker and what they're doing with the decentralized stablecoins is fantastic. If you need to borrow some money and you've got some ETH, I've done a detailed tutorial on how to take out a loan. Now, this week I did a video about what countries Bitcoin use is going to explode in, and one of those, as we went through local Bitcoins, was Iran, and it was this week up another 190%. So real world traction. You guys know this is what gets me excited. Square had increased revenues to the tune of 166 million through Bitcoin sales last year. It's people hopefully buying and using in the real world that I'm more excited about. Now, Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey did buy a Casa node this week. Now, this is a plug-in node, so if you're not technical and you're not comfortable with running software on your computer to run a Bitcoin node or a Lightning node, this is a plug-in node. I believe it's around $400 or $500 for us Australians, and you plug this in. Doesn't use a lot of power. It's not mining Bitcoin. Running a node supports the network, allows you to run a Lightning channel and support that wider ecosystem as well. So something that I actually want to purchase and do a video about soon. Now, this week we saw a general towards a general plasma, this article, and what this is talking about is PLAPs, so plasma apps. We're all probably familiar with dApps, decentralized apps, but Plasma has come a long way in the last month. A lot of people thought this was a year or two away, but we've seen a few different projects come out with some great infrastructure here to allow you to build apps on top of that Plasma network. And I played Plasma Dog for you the other day, a little game running on the Plasma network. So now we have this architecture, a bit of a framework for other people to start play around and building their apps on top of Plasma, on top of Ethereum as well. Now, well done to Ethereum that did have that successful hard fork, but what this tweet was about is hard forks are becoming harder to get through in these big mature blockchains with wide communities without having social or practical issues. And a lot of people get confused. The Bitcoin upgrade to SegWit was a soft fork. It was backwards compatible. It wasn't a hard fork. The hard fork was Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin Satoshi Vision, and when they networks actually split away. Now, Ethereum's got either one or two big hard forks coming up, and to show they can do this without dividing the community is really important, because you guys know my theory that Ethereum Classic are going to come out and say, we're the real Ethereum, when Ethereum want to move to proof of stake. Other hard forks coming up, I think Monero has one at the end of this week as well. interesting to see how that one plays out, and I did a write-up about that for members this week as well. So this week I did do a detailed video for members on shorting versus hedging, how to do this on your broker account, your margin account, talking about exchanges and options, other ways that you can do that. So if you're interested in that, guys, do head to nuggetsnews.com.au to join. We've got about a dozen deep dive videos now. We do save our best content for our members area. But it was interesting that after talking about these shorting strategies that this came out, strategy enabled tokens. So say you want to sell when it gets to a certain price, or if it goes outside the Bollinger Band on the daily candle, you want to sell. So we can start to program strategies into ERC20 tokens, and this is really cool stuff, something to keep an eye on for you advanced traders as well. Now, last week's price action. So Bitcoin fell off a cliff just after we'd recorded that video. And at that time, we were talking about shorting the rally, and that we did have divergence on the 4-hour on a lot of the charts, and they'd been forming these healthy bull flags. But this just looked like we'd got a little bit too overbought on the 4-hour and daily time frame. And well done. It's great to get these messages like this when someone's making big money on their trades in a pretty sideways market. So Bitcoin was trading at 41.50 right here when we record that video, talking about that short entry. We're looking at EOS and Litecoin. Both trades offered you about a 20% profit if you got in there. So everyone wants to know what's going to happen next. And Litecoin's actually recovered fairly strongly. It's using its exponential moving averages as support on the 4-hour time frame, whereas Ethereum still acting as resistance, as is Bitcoin here. So we want to zoom out as always. We start up in closer time frames, and on the daily chart it's not too bad. So we did hit this level here. We'll look at that in just a second on the weekly, using those exponential moving averages as support. Now, on our cycle brackets, we've got the 6th of March as that next level where we might start to get a bit of a push up. So, look, we might have a bit of a weakness, a bit of a spill. It'd be great if it can use this 50-day moving average at support at around 3,600. Or if we zoom out to the weekly here, we do have that 200-week moving average coming into play at around 3,400. So look, if we do get a pullback, that's what we want to see act as support, because we did run into these averages. It certainly kissed them. We couldn't make that weekly higher high, and it has rejected. So look, the bulls are still showing us a fair bit of confidence here. I don't think it's just going to roll over and go to these new lows straight away. I think people need to start to get comfortable with the idea that this could chop around for a little while, and it's this accumulation. Maybe we do get that one more wick down in the coming weeks or months, but that is what I'm going to do a detailed video for members about, because I believe this is that chance to make life-changing amounts of money. And whether you're an investor, a trader, you want to get some options involved here, or you want to use some leverage. If we get this one last dip, I'm hoping that I've got my strategy in place and I'm going to make a lot of money in a short period of time, as well as set my investing account up for the next 4 years, because you guys know that I believe there's another super cycle coming. To finish off with, I just want to leave you with this thought. Now, there's some extremely smart people out there that have turned bullish, saying the bottom's in, and we need this healthy mix of some people saying we're going to make new lows, because the bottom doesn't come when everyone is in agreement. The bottom's going to come when we have bulls and bears fighting it out, or when everyone's just too bearish. So look, it's great to see some smart people starting to turn bullish. As someone that's been through a lot of these markets, it's never easy, guys, and this has now been officially the longest crypto bear market. So well done to you guys that are still hanging in there watching these videos. I hope to talk to you guys again soon. Head to nuggetsnews.com.au for more information. Smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, share these videos around, and thanks for tuning in, guys. Cheers.